I just wrapped up a fantastic conversation with Joel George. He's the Executive Director of Retail Services Strategy and Operations at AdventHealth. We talked about how they're bringing hospitality to the medical field, concierge medicine, and what it's like being a dad here in Orlando. I hope you enjoy it. All right, so freshly minted Orlando Business Journal 40 Under 40. Hey. Joel George, how are you, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing really well, man. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, first and foremost. This is a fun studio. Let me just say that first and foremost.
Thank you.
I love it.
We're trying to show off a little bit of flair for Orlando and what's going on. A little whimsy.
I like it.
It's cool, man. So talk to us a little bit about. So if you're outside of Orlando, how do you explain to people what you do here in Orlando?
Wow, big question. We're starting off pretty raw right there. I like it. In Orlando, first and foremost, I think Orlando is probably the most popular place to live in the U.S. And so when you think about Orlando, there's just so much to do, right? And so a lot of people ask me that question. They're like, hey, what do you actually do? And so I'd like to just start out with just my story and just kind of tell you a little bit about my story, about how I got started into healthcare, family life, all of that. I think that's important. And so I started off as a registered nurse at one of the healthcare organizations here in Orlando. This was about 13 and a half years ago. And I was able to kind of figure out for me where my path was moving towards in healthcare. And so obviously I was in patient care in the ER, saw everything there from a trauma to the blood and guts and all of that. But I really understood what was happening in the ER from a transactional relationship standpoint. A lot of people will walk in, it's a transactional relationship. Nobody really wants to be in an ER setting. It's very dreary, very sterile.
They didn't wake up that morning thinking, I want to go to the ER later.
Nobody wakes up that morning and think of that way, right? But it's been always a thing in my mind where I've always been kind of a visionary in thinking, how do we transform spaces and how do we make them more hospitality focused? Even when I was in the ER and taking care of patients, I mean, there's only so much you can do from a care standpoint to make someone feel good.
Yeah.
And so it really does matter what the environment looks like. And so I was blessed to be able to kind of further my education, got my master's degree in business and nursing. And I just knew, I was like, I really want to be on the transformative side of healthcare for a while. Yeah. And so just took those steps in doing all of that and then went on to become a director of radiology at Celebration Hospital and AdventHealth here in Orlando.
That place is blown up.
Crazy.
They're adding left and right. I mean, it's wild.
You think about kind of a hotel experience, and that's what AdventHealth Celebration is, right? It's more
It looks like one.
It does.
Yeah.
It was actually, when you think about it, it's literally in Celebration, right?
Yep.
Which is close to the Disney, all the parks and all of that. And we really wanted to create a place that was kind of mimicking that same kind of vibe. And so I got an opportunity to become director of radiology there at AdventHealth Celebration, and I was in the imaging department, which had kind of this beachside theme already there, right? Which was, it was actually kind of dreamed up to figure out how do you take patients' minds off of their exams when they come in and get a CT or an MRI and an ultrasound. And so I took that concept to the next level by just adding new things. I added like video goggles where they can watch movies while they're getting MRIs done. Wow. We put a sandcastle on top of the MRI machine so that patients kind of feel like they're at the beach versus not being in a CT or MRI scanner. And what we saw and what my whole vision really was is like we were adding all these features because we wanted patients to stop using sedation. And sedation is basically, giving IV drugs so that patients can be put out. There's a lot of people that are claustrophobic. They can't be in an MRI machine. I don't know if you are.
Yeah, I am, for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't like that feeling. And so we got to implement a lot of that stuff. And we were able to kind of reduce sedation rates by a specific percentage, which saved the organization on drug costs and also the nursing labor that's needed to give those drugs. And so I knew from that moment on, that was kind of that moment where I was like, there's something here about just changing environments and the patient experience that goes such a long way when you think about lifetime partnerships with people.
Man, lifetime partnerships with people. That's wild to think about too, because I feel like I heard somebody say that the first time. I've never heard this phrase before, but lab coat or white coat anxiety.
Yeah.
Where they're like
white coat syndrome.
They think about going to the doctor and their heart starts fluttering and they're like, I do not want to be here. They'll forego going to the doctor because they're like, I have so much anxiety. So you've been able to work and solve that, where you're like, hey, I'm going to partner with you for life. You come in once.
Correct.
We make you feel like we're just here to help, and you're not going to be harmed. And from that, you've got somebody for life.
That's absolutely right. And so after that whole process, kind of at that time, the CEO and a group of people, I was included in that, was able to go to New York City and just dream up what the future of healthcare was going to look like 5 to 10 years in the future. So imagine a huge whiteboard, and we just drew up, like, what does that look like? What do consumers want 5 to 10 years in the future? Yeah. And I had this kind of thought, and I said, medical office buildings for me are just like very transactional places. You walk in, you check in 5 different places, you get a follow-up appointment, and you're on your own to figure that out, right? And so we came up with a concept called health parks for AdventHealth, and AdventHealth actually put a lot of capital funding into that and in figuring out what do consumers want in the future. And I kind of said, I want to take this a little bit of a different approach to this and say, hey, how do we learn from the hospitality industry? Like, what's the Ritz-Carlton doing? What is the Four Seasons doing? How do they know my name before I walk in the door? How do they know that my favorite chocolate is upstairs and it's waiting for me because we just know you before you walk in the door? Yeah. How do you create a true concierge experience, right? And so I learned a lot from those places. I've been to so many different hotels, Ken, and you probably do the same thing too as well, where you kind of just learn things that people are doing and industries are doing, and how do you bring that into healthcare? And so was able to bring that same concept into the health parks and really, truly revolutionize like what personalized experience looks like. And so really even designing them to look like hotels too as well. I know you've been to like the training center downtown.
Dude, it looks so good. I want to get into that next, but go ahead. Yeah,
exactly. So you've been in the places, and so I've always had this kind of vision to really bring the luxury concierge side into healthcare, and was blessed to be able to do that and to be able to put my vision into paper and bring it come to fruition. And so it's been a great journey for me. It's been fun. But Orlando's just been one of those places where I've been able to be creative in that space, right? Yeah. So that's what I would say about Orlando. It's the place where you can be creative.
Man, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're so hospitality driven that I feel like it's part of our DNA. People like they understand it, right? Like, hey, if somebody feels like they're beholden to this brand, or they feel some sort of positive way about this brand, whether that's hospital or theme park, they're willing to go spend money and or tell their friends about it. Exactly. And when you're in healthcare, we've got 2 major brands here, maybe the third if you want to call it that. But it's like, if they have to decide based off a billboard, okay, that's one thing. But if it's like, hey, no, listen, my wife had a really bad thing with her going on in their body. Right. She showed up to AdventHealth, and because of this and that, she was totally calm and at ease, and great doctors, great experience. They're going to tell everybody they know. Right. And that's worth 100 billboards. Exactly. And so it's interesting to say that you're kind of going this way. So does it drive revenue for the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think revenue for me is like, it's one of those conversations when you think about it. I don't always look at revenue. I look at what is the consumer lifetime value, right? What do you think about when you walk into a place and now all your care is done in one place, right? And how is that driving volume and revenue to our hospitals too as well, right? So that's something that we look at too as well. But the biggest value of the health parks is that the fact that you can get multiple things done in one place, right? You're giving the consumer a place where they can get everything done. You're kind of deterring them from not having multiple visits, right? And you're giving them time back, right? A lot of people really want time back for their families. They want time back to go to the parks and go to the all the different things in Orlando. And so we curate that whole experience for every single patient that walks in. We know kind of what they're in for. If there's multiple services that need to be done on that specific day, our team are all concierge focused, actually trained with just even techniques and tips from the Ritz-Carlton and all of that, just to really make it a personalized experience.
That's incredible. Yeah. So unpack the health parks for people that don't know. So like what kind of services would sort of be bundled together in one area?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are 36,000 square foot facilities, and there's 2 stories. So most of them, I have 5 of them right now all across Central Florida. And they are on the first floor, we have imaging, so your full gamut of comprehensive imaging services. You have CT, MRI, ultrasound, X-ray, all of those things. We also have sports medicine rehab too as well, so if you need to get physical therapy, occupational therapy, pelvic rehab therapy, that's all there. And then we have a full service lab too as well. So on the first floor is all your ambulatory complementary services, right? And when I say complimentary, it's not free, but complimentary, right?
They work well together. Yeah.
Exactly. Second floor, you have your specialties. You have your primary care. You have your endocrinology, your cardiology. And we're very synergistic in picking the specialties that focus on how do you get multiple things done, right? So I know just from being in healthcare for almost 13 years, I know what the three huge referral patterns are from a primary care standpoint. When you go to a primary care, most of the time, you're going to get a cardiology referral, or you're going to get a GI referral, a gastroenterology referral, or you're going to get a endocrinology referral if you're a diabetic. And so we pick some of the synergistic specialties focused on what that drive is from a referral standpoint.
Makes sense.
And so the beauty of it is that second floor. So anytime they're ordering anything, if a lab work needs to be done, you just go downstairs. Our team will actually guide you, get your lab work done on the same day. If that doctor orders an x-ray for the same day too as well for something that they want to look at, you can get your x-ray done too as well. Let's say you're an ortho patient, you come in and you had an injury, right? You get your PT done too as well.
Yeah.
The beauty of the health parks is also that we are a consumer focused and we're open multiple days of the week and on extended hours too as well. So it's funny because I do this thing that I love about really understanding the consumer. I looked at a lot of our appointment times, and many times patients come in after 5 o'clock and on Saturdays and Sundays because that's literally when they can get healthcare done.
Yeah. You're telling me you want, not only am I sick, but I have to take PTO to go to the doctor. You're like, oh, let me. Okay, so let's solve that for you. You guys come in after hours and on the weekends, and now we've got. And the other thing is, I mean, I've been to a doctor before where, hey, I had a hernia, then I had to go do this and that, and they're sending you all over town.
Right.
And so you're saying you do this complimentary where you just kind of keep coming back to the same spot.
Exactly.
That's a huge difference.
It's huge.
And so let's talk about maybe I would love to go macro with sort of the healthcare world that we're in right now. It seems very transactional, like you mentioned. And it feels like when I tell people I live in Florida, they're like, well, access to healthcare is actually really hard.
Right.
And I'm like, I mean, I don't feel that, but how do you respond to that?
So it is, and I will say this as just being transparent as possible with you too as well. The population growth that's happening in Orlando, it's hard to keep up with when you think about the providers that we have to hire in and the people that we need. There are specialties that are sometimes 3 to 4, 6 months out just to get an appointment now, right? And it is due to just population demand too as well. And we also live in a place in Orlando where it's a very eclectic group of people. You got your elderly that probably have a lot of comorbidities.
Yep.
And it's just a fact of the matter. It's not just Sarasota and Boca Raton where they all live. They do live in Orlando too.
They really do, yeah.
Right.
There's active adult communities popping up everywhere. So
exactly. And we have a large group of 55 and older communities too as well. So it is harder. And I think what I say is, we just have to get aggressive with our approach to hiring. And we're getting aggressive with our nursing hires too as well. We're getting aggressive with our provider hires too. But there's also another piece to this that I think we haven't tapped into, which I'm excited to talk about, which is really my wheelhouse and I'm passionate about, is this concierge medicine side of things, right? Where people want to take control of their healthcare by doing it on their own time.
Yeah.
And right now it's almost a system where you have to rely on a system to get you in, right? And so that's where I think that there's going to be a lot of growth in. I say this all the time, and I've studied the concierge side for a long time. So in 2023 to 2032, we're going to see probably about a 15.1 or actually a 9.3% increase in concierge medicine.
I believe it.
Which is going to be equated to a $15.1 billion industry by the year 2032. Oof. And what I know about that is that people don't mind paying an extra portion of money just to get 24/7 virtual care or get a prescription that they need. Actually, many people don't even want to go to a hospital.
Yeah.
They want to get care done at home. And so how can I see a doctor on my phone? And how can I get all my things taken care of? And so that's where I think that medicine is heading to, and that's what I'm passionate about seeing and the growth of that in Orlando.
Dude, I love that. So let's unpack that. You and I met at the barbecue on the park, which is a cool event.
That's right.
And you said, yeah, I work right over there. And you pointed over to like where the new Magic training facility was. And I was like, oh, you work for the Magic? And you're like, no, I work for AdventHealth. And I was like, well, no, that's the Magic training facility. And you're like, well, that's a lot of like a misconception. Unpack. So what have you guys done on the concierge side and everything else going on with the park over by the Kia Arena?
Yeah, absolutely. So the training center, when you think about a training center, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, right? Because when we talked, you're like, I didn't even know there was medical stuff happening in there, right?
Yeah.
So the training center is actually a place where you can get pro athlete level care for the community. And it's not just for an athlete that can walk in and, you know, a D1 athlete or someone that is at the elite level, but it's also for the community. It's a place where you can get you can see an ortho doctor. Actually, we have a Rothman Orthopedics there, and you're actually getting taken care of by the doctors that take care of the Magic players too as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then you also have imaging there too as well, so you can get all your imaging done too as well, and then also sports medicine as well.
Is that concierge, or is there a concierge component to it?
There isn't a concierge component to it. What I like to call it is concierge level service, though, right? Because you walk in and you can get multiple things done in the same day, right?
It looks like a health club,
right?
I mean, like when you were walking me through this, and it was like, it felt like a high-end hotel health club vibe.
Exactly.
And yet you're getting everything right there with the highest level of service.
Right. And right now I'm focused on actually opening up that strategy a little bit more and actually starting to bring more multidisciplinary specialties in there that are like primary care, endocrinology, things like that kind of really create that health park vibe there too as well. I'm excited about it. I think it's a untapped area. Obviously downtown Orlando, like and you know this, it's going to blow up soon.
Yeah, I agree.
It's going to blow up soon.
We talked about getting a new space, so I might need to look downtown actually, because it's fairly affordable right now, but I don't think it's going to be affordable for long.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. But so yeah, I like to call it concierge level of service for the community. That's what it is, right? And I think it's so hard because every community member and everybody that's in the community, sometimes they think like, hey, why can't I be treated like a VIP everywhere I go, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is where my heart is too, is figuring out how do we create concierge level experiences everywhere in healthcare, because people want it, people need it.
Yeah.
There is a sector that you can do a membership model and pay for it, but then there's also a sector that just want good care. Right.
Go figure. I mean, thankfully I didn't have to go to the ER a lot as a kid, other than some stitches and that sort of thing. But I remember our family doctor and like how just they knew everything about you, and it was this different level of care than what we experience today. And even like my kid's pediatrician is in some big, massive building now. Like it doesn't feel that family vibe anymore. Right. It feels very transactional. And so how do you get across that? I mean, the concierge piece I get, the caring about people, but unpack, what does that even mean for people?
Yeah. So I always tell people this, and I think this is just kind of my mantra every single time I talk to people. It's that you can build probably the most technologically coolest health club vibe that you want, right? But it's really the operations and the people that matter, right?
Yeah.
You have to train the people to have a service level that is exceptional. Right. And I think you can only learn that if you really study hospitality brands.
Yeah. So when does that start? Is that going back to the schooling, or is it like, hey, we only hire to this kind of avatar and train them our way?
It's a very good question. So what I truly like to hire, so I hire a lot of the front desk associates, right? So people that your first impression when you walk in the door, because I think that's the most important thing. And a lot of times we hire people, and my mantra is pretty much hiring people that have had hospitality experience, right? I don't want that same person that walks into a healthcare organization and all they know is clinical, because they tend to be very black and white.
Yeah.
They don't really understand.
It comes off standoffish.
Yeah.
It could be super kind people, but like, they just see the one thing.
Exactly. Exactly. So I tend to hire people that are focused on, that have come from a hospitality background, that understand what retail looks like. Because I mean, retail is you are basically selling the consumer, right?
Yeah.
You're actually trying to get them to continue to come back.
Sure.
And that's what you really want to have in a healthcare organization too as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like Orlando is mature enough? I mean, so you said roughly 10% is going towards that concierge piece over the next 10 years. Do you feel like Orlando's on the precipice of that, of needing more concierge?
I do. Here's what I'll say. There is a sector of Orlando that I know are very proactive about their healthcare.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So there's two ways of thinking. You can be reactive about your healthcare, which means that, okay, I just got a sore throat. I'm going to go to the urgent care, or I'm going to go to the ED.
Mm.
You don't want to go to the ED for a sore throat, just FYI. And I'm going to tell everybody here, no, you can. There's other options so that you don't have to pay specific amount in an ER. But there is a sector here that really does focus on proactive healthcare, and that means, hey, I want to get genetic testing and find out what's happening in my family that I can prevent in the future, or I want to get a preventative scan done, right? And I say this to a lot of people. There is a scan right now that you can do. It's a heart scan, basically. It's a heart calcium score scan. It's a preventative heart scan that you can get done that kind of helps you understand, do you have any calcifications in your heart or anything like that, or any comorbidities that have affected you in the past from a family history standpoint. And so there is a sector of people that really want all of those things done. And I do think that's where concierge medicine is going to go in the future, is like for that specific person that's like, hey, I'd like to understand, what is my functionality in the future? Like, how is my muscle development growing? And like, how are things happening? What are things that are going to impact me in the next 2 to 3 years that I can be prepared for?
This episode of the Orlando Real Podcast is brought to you by the Pozek Group. Whether you're looking to sell or buy anywhere in Central Florida, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. Make sure you reach out at theorlandoreal.com/real. I feel like, I don't know if you saw the story about in Disneyland, the guy from Half Marathon, he died at the finish line.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like a super healthy guy.
Yep.
And he said the night before he went out, it was really hot, and he felt like a little dizzy and laid down. He's like, he just thought it's just hot. So, but the next day he runs a half marathon and then dies at the finish line. Yeah. And so I started thinking about that. I'm like, man, I'm a runner.
Yep.
I don't feel like I'm sick or like I need to go to the doctor, but like maybe I should just start setting this up and doing some of these scans and figuring out what's going on with my life just so that I can be preventative.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. I think that there is also, you have to find a really good primary care doctor that focuses on that. And that's where the basis of all healthcare starts, is primary care.
Yeah.
And so your primary care doc can do a lot of things. FYI, a lot of people just think they just order labs and to check your blood work and give you kind of a care plan, and that's it. They can do a lot. They can help you from a holistic standpoint and say, hey, this is what nutritionally you should be doing. They can also tell you, hey, look, maybe let's do a gut biome test or a biome test and kind of figure out what is it that you may have a hypersensitivity to that you want to stop eating, right? And all of that. And so there's just a lot of work that I think that we still haven't tapped into. There's a lot of concierge doctors here in Orlando. There are already. But I don't know if there's a lot of them that focus on the holistic side of things, where they're like, hey, you might want to get this checked out. I looked at your family history, and you might want to just check it, and so we can start making those lifestyle changes for you.
Yeah. Is that only for the top 1%, or is that for everybody?
Question. Yeah. So it really depends, because there are programs out there that are like $29 a month, and you get full access to a membership model where you can get full access to a primary care doctor. And $29 a month covers all 24/7 virtual visits for you, prescriptions, and all of that too as well. And so then there's elite level, right? There's another elite level that you can pay maybe $5,000 or $10,000 annually, right? Where you can go to places like, there's one in Lake Nona called Fountain Life, which is kind of a different concierge approach too as well, but they do a lot of that genetic testing and all of that too as well. But yeah, so there's many different options there. And I think the secret sauce is going to be figuring out not just the primary care side to it, but what are the holistic things that we can add on to those things too as well. The top 1% right now, and I can tell you this, I think we're probably half of the people that don't have that wealth are still probably paying a lot of money for healthcare now.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And I don't know if you agree with this, but I've heard one time someone say like spending money on preventative is actually cheaper than once you're sick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because when you're actually catching something before you have to go to the ER, It's totally different. ER bill versus a hospital bill is different. And it's just depends on, when you catch something, right? If you catch it late, you're going to get everything done, right? And then you're going to kind of see the bill and you're like, oh, I didn't know all of this was happening to me. So
this is a surprise. Here we go.
Yeah.
So how long have you lived here?
Yeah, so I've been here, 30? I was just talking to the team about this. I've been here 34 years. And so I grew up in Lakeland, Florida, Polk County. And so, and then when I was about 3 years old, I moved to Orlando, Dr. Phillips area. Have been through and through, man. Went through Dr. Phillips Elementary, high school, Southwest Middle School. Did the whole Dr. Phillips thing for a long time. So
that whole, I love Dr. Phillips, and it feels like it gets better and better as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's still more stuff coming. It's like, it's a great place, great spot.
Yeah.
What have you feel like? What's been some of the major changes that you've enjoyed?
I think the biggest change for me in Dr. Phillips and Windermere, the biggest thing that I've enjoyed is like how we're embracing hospitality and like bringing new hotel brands in.
Yes,
I'm a big believer in that. Like you'll probably catch me at all the new hotels that are coming in. My family, I have a 9 and 11-year-old, 2 beautiful girls. My wife, all of us, we always do staycations in Orlando. Like that's just our thing.
I follow you on Instagram. You guys are always somewhere. I'm like, man, this guy gets around. I love it.
Yeah, no, we love staycations. I've always wanted my kids to experience things, right? Like there's one thing about it. It's like you can really experience the material things of life, but you can never take away the experiences and memories that they have. And so we're big about that and about experiencing new things. And so I think that's probably my favorite thing about Orlando is like how we've embraced hospitality.
Yeah. Over in O-Town West, not too far from Dr. Phillips, they've got the Tao Hotels coming up. That's going to be insane.
Yep.
Have you tried Evermore yet?
I have. Yep.
What did you think about that whole community?
It was awesome. I think it's awesome. My wife actually did like a spa day there too as well, which was awesome. And I think that whole community, actually, that's where I live right there. And so I can actually see the whole place from where I live. I think the whole community concept of it is amazing. I think you can use that lagoon all year long.
Right.
Which is cool.
Well, like going back to the concierge hospitality vibe. So for those that don't know, watching, like you've got the villas, you've got the main Conrad Hotel, you've got the flats where you feel like you have your own house, and it all kind of circulates around this crystal lagoon. It's a very cool concept.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think that's going to do really well. And then you have all the golf courses out in Orlando too. I'm an avid golfer. I love golf.
Oh yeah.
And my daughter plays. She's a 9-year-old golf phenom too as well. Man. So it's fun to kind of see that growth with her and kind of being that daddy caddy too as well, which is fun. So I think that's another thing that I love about Orlando is just the amenities. We have so much out here that has grown. Dr. Phillips specifically is growing like crazy too as well. And so
cool to see, man. Yep. What are some things that maybe having seen all these different hotels and gone on these different experiences that you'd love to still take from that world back over to the hospital?
Okay, awesome.
World,
That's a great question. I've been reading this book called Unreasonable Hospitality. I'm sure everybody's read that book too as well. And so I'm a big believer in the hospitality industry. I recently went to French Laundry, which was like in Unionville in Napa Valley, and kind of understood that whole perspective of what does true hospitality look like. I think what we can take from the hotel industry and the hospitality industry that still hasn't been embedded into healthcare is continuity of like follow-up. And I think what I mean by that is there's always, when you walk into hotels or you walk into a restaurant that's a fine dining restaurant, there's a maitre d' there that is constantly, hey, they're looking at your table and they're removing things that you are not using automatically. You don't even have to put your head up to look for anybody. Right. And I think that is the level of expertise and attention to detail that we're still missing in healthcare. Is how do we get so proactive in like answering the question before they even ask it?
It's huge.
Right. And so I think that is the level of where we still haven't really tapped into in the healthcare space. But it also comes down to hiring the right people. Yeah. Right. It comes down to where does that background come from? And how do you train that into people in healthcare?
Because, train that into people with healthcare. Because it's like, if you get, whether it's nurses or doctors, these people have gone to school for 10, 15, a lot of years, right? And at one point, they're already kind of ingrained in who they are. And so if the pool of people in Orlando already is kind of small, you're going to have to start bringing people from everywhere.
And that's what's tough right now, is that bringing people from everywhere is great, but you don't want to just put a warm body into
the right body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to put the right body there, and the one that is a right cultural fit, right, for the organization or whatever industry you're in.
Yeah, man, this has been fascinating. What's next?
Oh man, what's next? I for me specifically, I just love the concept of hospitality and embedding it into healthcare. I'm always looking at opportunities for growth in that space, and what we can do in the concierge space. So I'm just thankful to be able to partner. The whole 40 under 40 thing was a great thing to kind of network with everyone and kind of figure out, hey, what are some people doing in this community, and how do we embed that kind of level of service from a healthcare standpoint. So I'm excited about that. I think there's a lot of growth in the concierge space. I'm excited to see that take off. Yeah. But right now I'm just excited about living experiences with my family. I love being a dad, and it's just fun being a girl dad for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to see my girls experience all the things that they are experiencing, but also, kind of figuring out how does business, family life, spirituality, all of that blend in together as a businessman.
Yeah. So you opened it up, so I'm going to keep going there. So family guy.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm on a mission for is to create more community in Orlando.
Love that.
And I feel like we're a very transient town historically, and yet that is starting to change where more people are wanting to put down roots. What are some things that you hope Orlando brings on or leans into for your daughters so that they stay here?
Amazing.
Instead of going somewhere else to find it?
Being vulnerable, right? My daughters are in kind of the most formative times of their life right now. I have a 9 and 11-year-old. My 11-year-old just started 6th grade. Yeah. Middle school is just a different beast, right? There's just so much going on in that time frame of life where you're an 11-year-old and you've got 7 different periods, and you're going through every single period, and you're going to the next class, and you're going to the next class next semester, and sometimes it gets overwhelming. So I think the big thing is focusing on how do we get our kids to understand what's a safe space for them to create community, and connect with the right kids and the right community, and be kids, right? Like, not just worry about what is happening and what their best friend is doing and all of that, but how can they just go to places and still be kids again, like playgrounds and all of that, like all of the spaces in our community that we can start taking advantage of. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. As a family man, I'm starting to notice that too as well. And, getting out of the house and just enjoying different cultures is important to me because, I come from an Indian culture. And so Indian culture is very family driven, right? It's like we've got get-togethers and there's 50 people in our houses.
So cool.
Right? Which is fun, right? And actually my kids enjoy that. They love that. But I also want them to be cultured and understanding, like, hey, there are so many different cultures and so many different things you can learn. Let's go to, and this is so kind of tacky, but you go to Epcot and you got 7 different countries there. Yeah. Let's go, understand every single country, right? So
I feel like Orlando is a little bit of that right now too. It's really cool to see how diverse we are. Yeah. And there's people from literally all over the world that live here. And there's little spots around town with different restaurants and exposing to them. Yeah. I think that's a really cool opportunity we have that maybe other parts of the world don't have. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's huge, and exposing our kids to different types of food too as well. Yeah. We're foodies as a family too as well. So it's a big deal for us.
Right on. Yep. All right. Date night. Where you going? Where's your spot? Or top 2 or 3?
Wow. So you're talking to hospitality guy, right?
I know. That's what I'm saying. I need to know.
So we recently went to Knife and Spoon, which is in the, I think it's in the Ritz. Yeah. And so we really liked it. My wife and I really liked that food over there, and just the nature of how they took us in and all of that. I think that's an excellent spot. Top 3. I'm going to say second is probably, I'm a Dr. Phillips guy, right? Yeah. So there's this place called Fresco Italiana in kind of the Sand Lake, Turkey Lake area, the plaza. Very easy, good Italian food. Awesome. Shout out to Achille and to the owner of the restaurant there. But it's awesome. Great spot for a date night, quick in and out. And then if you're really kind of feeling like you want fine dining and Oh, actually, let me take this. I'll take this another way. Indian food, because I'm Indian.
Please, let's go.
There you go.
He's not
food.
Indian, but he likes it.
He
Go
likes
ahead.
Indian food. Indian food. Best spot that's in Orlando is Bombay Street Kitchen, which is on Orange Blossom Trail, which is like, actually it's won a Bib Gourmand Michelin star. And so it's a great spot, and it's got authentic Indian food. And so that's my heart. That's anytime people ask you what's your favorite food, I'm biased. I like Indian food.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
Joel, thanks for hanging out, man.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thanks for watching the interview today. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button before you leave. And by the way, again, if you're looking to sell or buy a house anywhere in Central Florida, we want to be your real estate resource of choice. Reach out at theorlandoreal.com/real.